Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of Community Exchange. We're so excited to have you back for another full day. This morning's plenary session features Domenico Vicinanza from GÉANT and Ann Doyle from Internet2, who have worked for many years as part of a long-standing collaboration between GÉANT and Internet2. They are both performing artists, passionate about the community they serve, and I know you'll find their presentation fascinating. Let's start by welcoming Domenico to the stage.
Well, let me start by taking you back to 1996. Well, things were different in those days. Food was different, cars were different, fashion was different. Life was slightly different, and one aspect of our life was definitely very different. Internet. In 1996, less than 30 million people worldwide were actually able to connect to the internet. That means that less than 10% of the American population was actually online. And even just the concept of being online was very different from today's opening the laptop. There were no laptops really in 1996. Or opening up our phone. There were no smartphones in 1996. And it requires something more, a little bit more, and definitely more commitment. We dial up using things like this that sounded a little bit like screeching birds. And then we waited. And waited. And waited a bit more. And finally, pixel by pixel, our web page and images started appearing on screen. Search engines worked occasionally. And we started having our email addresses and contact people on using the internet. And finally, we started building our little communities, our mailing lists, our forums. They were our social media in those days. And even if our patience was measured in minutes, not milliseconds, and even if it was excruciatingly painful to be online and also quite expensive, not everybody was able to afford to have an internet connection at home, we kept coming back. Because despite the pain and the friction, there was something drawing us there, something that kept us going forward, an irresistible pull towards something bigger. Being connected to the internet was a little bit like opening a door towards something new. It was a little bit like looking at the universe using a foggy telescope. You know there is something there, it's wonderful, you want to go there, but you can't clearly really see what's going on. And then something else happened. We started feeling present online, which is a really strange oxymoron. Like we started feeling there, feeling present in a space that did not exist. And that was like a very, very important moment where we had a new sense of connection. We started building new relationships that were based on sharing a common virtual space. We were finding new communities, listening to voices we never heard before. And we stopped going to internet just for information finding, just to know something more. It was more for, we were getting into this new habit of being connected with other people, other cultures, other places in a very, very different, profound way. And in those days, 1996, on the 1st of October 1996, 21 miles that way, at the Chicago O'Hare Hilton, 34 university leaders gathered together and decided it was the right thing to do to start a network for research and education. Now, in 1996, internet was not even a promise. was just a hope, a very concrete hope in response of a very concrete need of very real people, but just a hope. And yet, 34 people decided that the right thing to do was planting a very important, very powerful seed, combining technical ambition, cultural vision, and community spirit, and creating Internet2. 30 years later, Internet2 is a big network going from coast to coast, north to south, and to the 34 initial leaders, 300 and more, 20 and counting more partners joined together. And the speed went from a few kilobits per second in 1996, that's what we had in our homes, to the 400 gigabits per second we have today, 300,000 faster. And that's not it. The community grew and became more and more widespread and international. And a global community requires a global network. And since no infrastructure, no matter how big and wonderful they are, can exist in isolation, Internet2, GÉANT, ESNet, Canary, with other international partners, started working together to connect continents. And we had the first transatlantic links. And something I'm really proud of, in 2024, the bandwidth across the Atlantic connecting North America and Europe reached 2.4 terabits per second, the highest capacity transoceanic connectivity ever made available, dedicated to research and education. That was an important, fantastic milestone for all of us. And if you go back, going back to the Internet2 website, there was something that definitely makes me very excited, and that's something I love. And it's we provide the services, fine, the network, of course, the technology, the connection. We are here today, I'm here on stage today, because of the last point, connection. Technology without a connection, without community, it's just a bunch of fancy cables and shiny lights, and nothing more. We made a connection, we are the community. We are the reason why the whole thing exists. And something that makes me even more excited, because as an artist and somebody who uses the network daily to do different kind of things, I witnessed that desire for connection existed long before high-performance network ever existed. Artists were always trying to connect across distance. Musicians wanted to play together with other people across the globe. Teachers wanted to reach more and more students, regardless of where they are. And performers want to create or share a stage with somebody who is not in the same room. And the desire was there. The technology was not. So a little bit more time traveling. And let me show you how this actually started. 1874. Don't worry, I know we only have 52 minutes, I can say. But let me start. 1874, the telegraph was invented. Fantastic way to transmit information. Text, people can spread news using a cable, amazing. It only took 1 year to a musician to hijack that technology and say, let's do music with it. Elisha Gray, in 1875, patented the musical telegraph. That's a picture of the patent over there. And 1876, the first time it was actually used for a musical performance. It only took 2 years to committed musicians. They show you how eager artists and creators are to use technology. Okay, only 2 years. And hijacked that and created a little keyboard hooked to telegraph lines. And that allowed the musician in a room to actually play somewhere else. For the very first time in history, we broke the walls of a concert place, of a concert room, and artists were free to perform everywhere. It was very rudimentary, it was still a foggy telescope, but you had this very clear feeling of being connected to somebody who's not in the same physical space. Fast forward a few years, 1897, Thaddeus Hale invented the telharmonium. Massive instrument, probably the largest one ever created, like 60 feet, weighing something like £500,000, a gigantic mix of cogwheels and coils, and it essentially was a tuned power plant where you can actually spin cogs and generate waveform of a different frequency. And everything was controlled to a keyboard so that you can actually sit there and play music in some way. It was a very, very old version of the Hammond. The Hammond was actually a miniaturized version of this, so it was like a very, very important piece of history. But what is really fascinating is this. This makes the difference between a piece of technology and a community catalyst. Telephone. Imagine you want to listen to some music. You have no piano at home, you have no music instruments, maybe you don't know how to play. You can just call this guy using the telephone, and this person was able to play the telharmonium and stream across the telephone line the music back to you. The telephone was not invented to stream music. It only took the artist a few years to understand how they could hijack that and made that possible. And back, moving forward a little bit more, World's Exhibition 1964. The first picture phone was presented by AT&T. That was a kind of historic moment. For the first time, people could see each other in addition to talk to each other. It was incredibly expensive. You need something like $1,000 subscription. It wasn't crazy expensive. It was not for everyone. The quality was questionable. But what's fascinating is that it opened a brand new idea that people can actually look at each other and feel, again, being present, feeling present online went a step forward further. And people can start thinking about what can we do? Music, of course, and art. In 1979, there was a very famous two-way Los Angeles, New York City experiments where people were starting singing to each other, reciting poetry, and playing to each other. It was one of the first experiments where audio, video, or communication was used. But again, it was expensive. Quality was appalling. But still, people really crave this. Artists are innovators. Give any piece of network technology to an artist, and it will take no time for them to figure out a way to use it for creative purposes. Artists ask, what else can we do with this? What else can I create with that? They bend tools, they break it sometimes, but by doing so, they show us possibilities we didn't know they were there and they were possible. And we have plenty of examples where this actually happened in many different fields. In cinema, filmmakers drove camera innovation. In theater, stage designers revolutionized the way lighting was actually controlled. Dancers and choreographers pushed very, very quickly the development of real-time advanced capture system forward. Musicians pushed forward the digital audio workstation and the whole electronics that is behind the music today. And what is true is that art always creates community. And art has always been the biggest catalyst for community building. That's the reason we have concert halls, museum, art exhibition, libraries, because people want to connect and gather together around creative expression. Art is a really important part of our society. It builds a social fabric. It connects, it binds, it gives a common purpose. Art creates shared spaces where everybody feels welcome and where we can exchange opinion in a very open way and where we all feel we belong. And technology just expanded that. Technology just broke the physical boundaries of a classroom, of a library, of a concert hall, creating a single performance space, a truly global one where everyone is welcome. Technology scales up what art already does best, which is bringing people together. And this is not just about art and artists. What art creates very often benefits everyone else. This is just an example coming from the Czech Republic Research and Education Network, CESNet. They created years ago a tool called Ultragrid. It's an absolutely free cross-platform tool to create, to do audio-video communication at high quality. And doctors immediately spotted the possibility of using this to stream surgery in real time for the students. So that meant, students that could not be physically in the same operating theater can actually look at that. And so that means better teaching, but also it helped doctors to look together at very difficult cases. So having the possibility of having a better healthcare. So what we can see is a sort of really important, very special virtuous circle where technology enables art challenges technology, and technology evolves, and by doing so, everybody benefits. And then art takes the new fruits of that, and the circle continues. It's something wonderful. And speaking about community and speaking about how this is relevant for us, of course, I would like to say a very special thank to somebody who spent her own career helping building this community, bridging the arts and into the engineering and science, and bringing arts and humanities into the advanced networking. Somebody who championed the inclusion of arts for the very beginning into research and education network and advanced networking. Somebody who started a very successful collaboration with colleagues across continents called the Network Performing Art Production Workshop. In the US with the New World Symphony, and in Europe with Claudio Locchio, who's sitting there, and then myself and GÉANT, helping creating spaces where artists, engineers, researchers, educators could collaborate and learn from each other. It's a real pleasure to welcome on stage a partner in crime, a pioneer, and a dear friend of mine, Anne Doyle.
Thank you, Domenico. Wonderful context setting. This is a picture of me in my basement during the pandemic, my chilly basement, actually in my Internet2 fleece. And I had just learned how to use Stanford's jack trip low latency audio, and I was rehearsing with a bass player in Detroit. I'm based in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Quite a thrill when you're isolated at home at a particularly lonely juncture in our lives together. I'm going to tell you a story, but before I do, I want to acknowledge that Doug Van Houweling, a prior president and CEO of Internet2, really believed that performing artists would love Internet2's network if they knew about it. And he hired me to go out and spread the good word about our network and try to bring together creative people to see what they could do with it. So I just want to go on record thanking him for his vision and support. He was right. Performing artists love our advanced research and education networks. So one story from the past, and let me set the context. It was Halloween night. The year was 2000. We were at the Rialto Theater at Georgia State having a member meeting that was comprised of university presidents who were paying the bill for Internet2, and they weren't that happy to be there on Halloween night, missing their families at home. And I was 3 months into the job and tasked with doing something entertaining that would demonstrate fabulous use of our advanced network. I'm going to show you a little bit of the video, and then I'm going to tell you what was going on backstage.
Oh, more trick-or-treaters. Wonderful. Whoa! It's the New World Symphony String Quintet. Happy Halloween. Come on to the living room. Come on down to the living room. Welcome. I understand you have a fabulous trick for us tonight, and that we have visitors from afar. Patricia, can you hear me?
I can indeed.
Welcome, Patricia Knott. This is the Dean of Musicians at the New World Symphony. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you, Anne.
I'm going to stop it there. I want to say a couple of comments about New World Symphony and their remarkable support all the way back that many years ago in 2000. They were so unsure any of this was going to work that they paid to send 5 musicians and 2 cellos, because you have to pay plane seats for the cellos. In case everything failed, we would have 5 gifted young musicians on stage who could play a concert and entertain the university presidents. So thank you, New World Symphony. Remarkably, things worked. We had 8 remote sites, but backstage there were network engineers, video directors, projectionists, video truck in the alley that actually caught on fire a couple of hours before the event. And I am backstage a little, stressed. And one of the best network engineers in the nation had a cable in his hand, and he said, Anne, I need to talk to you for a minute. I have no idea what this is. I don't know what it does. I don't know where to plug it in, but I'm just warning you, when you get out there on stage, something's gonna fail. So first of all, he did make me nervous. And second of all, what we learned is he had a video cable in his hand, which is very different than a networking cable. And the then CIO of New World Symphony was standing backstage with me, and my boss, Ted Hans, for those of you who know Ted, brilliant man. And the 3 of us stood back there and said, you know what? If we think our community members are going to produce events like this, we need to create a workshop that will help them understand all of the networking engineering technology expertise they need, but also audio, visual, lighting, projection. And so there was created the Networked Performing Arts Production Workshop, nicknamed NPAPW, a nickname I've never been able to get rid of. One of our GÉANT colleagues used to call it the puppy paws workshop because the NPAP something. So we've lived with the nickname, but look at the locations. We realized fairly early on that everybody in the US wanted to collaborate with European colleagues, and Claudio Alocchio said, let's do this in Europe. So forevermore, every other year, we host this workshop in the United States, and then the next year in Europe, and then back to the United States. A wonderful collaboration. I want to show you one other video. It's brief, but I want to remind us all that we are research and education networks, and the performing arts really adopted the education uses of our network. And we're here to serve our students if you're in the education side of the house. This is a New World Symphony intern, and she had a chance to work with the London Symphony Orchestra concertmaster who was performing in New York, and did a remote from New York to Miami Beach masterclass with her. And this is her commenting on her experience.
Well, I was really so thrilled to be part of this masterclass with the London Symphony concertmaster via Internet2. At first, I was a bit wary, but very soon I saw the immediacy of the video presentation and also the high quality and clarity of the sound.
If you could just be fantastically proud of this direction of tempo that you take there.
I almost forgot that there were cameras there, and the interaction became so natural.
Can I please, is there a way for me to see the music? Because if you can just put it in front of the camera, I can just figure out what's, oh. Yeah, it's coming, yeah, great. Fantastic, thank you very much.
It was almost as if I was looking through an open window into another room. For me, this is such an exciting project, and I'd love to participate in it more in the future.
Pretty wonderful. So then we moved on to producing more multi-site performance events. This is the Frank Gehry designed New World Center that houses New World Symphony. Multi-site theater productions. I did have a faculty member tell me that the multi-site production of Elmer Rice's classic play, The Adding Machine, was the first time he had not fallen asleep during it. So sometimes technology does enhance what we do. This was spectacular. One of these dancers is in Santa Cruz, the other's in New York. They're choreographed to dance together, and you could hardly tell who was where. It was that effective. And then one other project that was really, it's still ongoing, very special. Students have the opportunity to do mock auditions when they're preparing to audition for symphony orchestra positions all over the world. And we really understand that we teach differently in the US than we do in Europe, than we do in China. So students get to audition virtually with faculty from these institutions, listening and mentoring them and giving them advice. If you're going to be auditioning for a European orchestra, be thinking about this. Wonderful, wonderful project that, again, really has helped our students. So all of this, we got lucky. Classical music does call and response teaching. And the masters do not usually play with the students. They listen, show you how they want it to be. And so it was call and response. The multi-site theater events were dance, they were theater and drama. The one thing missing is musicians' ability to play simultaneously. And we've learned that you have to have a round-trip latency that's under 40 milliseconds for two musicians to stay in sync when they are playing together. So Claudio Alocchio, Claudio is in the front row, wave and say hello. Claudio led a team of developers to try to understand where was the latency coming from, what would it take to reduce it, and they developed LoLa, which is the most groundbreaking technology I've seen in my career. The ability for musicians to have simultaneous video and audio was remarkable. This was Internet2's member meeting in Philadelphia. That's Marjorie Bagley from University of North Carolina, Greensboro, and Chen Hao Li from Northern Illinois University just up the road. One thing that was most notable about this performance is at that juncture, the audience for an Internet2 member meeting was still very technical, hard to impress, and they got a standing ovation from all of you at an Internet2 member meeting, which was a pretty great moment. Then the pandemic hit, and we all know we lost our ability to have access to all of these tools. One of the things that I do want to comment about is, as Domenico said, we all still wanted to connect, and especially in the music realm. And something kind of remarkable happened. We started working more on our commodity tools. So the Common Solutions Group and Internet2 worked with Zoom because so many people had Zoom, but they were in their homes over commodity internet. Zoom developed original sound for musicians, which really ups their audio game and enabled music instruction over Zoom. Jack Tripp, which I was using in that opening photo, developed out of Stanford, low latency audio. eduMEET, a GÉANT project that created video and very high quality audio. And in this photo, this is composer and choral conductor Eric Whitaker. All of those boxes of choral singers are performing live, and he's conducting them, and they're all isolated in their homes during the pandemic. And that is a remarkable thing. So finally, and it took a pandemic, I think, to make this happen, we really moved from what was a very niche group of people able to do this over our advanced networks to becoming very mainstream and allowing all of us to stay together. So I have reflected on the past decades with Internet2 and what we are now doing currently, and I would like to turn it back over to Domenico, who is going to reflect on our future.
And I would like to start reflecting on the future, starting from the present or a little bit of past. This is 2 years ago. It was the last NPAPW that we hosted in Vilnius, in Lithuania, and we have started experimenting with multi-site performances. So in this case, we had a violin player was on stage in Vilnius. We had a pianist in Prague and a cello player in Tallinn. And different distances, different paths required, of course, careful tuning of all the delays. But just to show you how this seamlessly translates into just sheer wonder. And the technology used was incredibly complex, multi-camera setup. We had different kind of microphones being used. You can see cameras that are pointed to the musicians. There were screens that were positioned in a way that musicians can look at each other, so also using visual cues. But the whole technology could happily disappear and let the connection happen and the magic happen, and musicians were just playing together. If you don't have that, you can produce something like this. If technology is not able to disappear to a level that the musicians don't have to think about it, you don't have something like that. And let me show you the last MPAPW. There was just a few months ago. We were at the new school in New York City, and this is on stage at the new school. So Chris Brazil hosted us, and it was an amazing experience because it was the first time we were in New York, and we did an experiment with the New York Symphony in Miami. And we had a fantastic trio. Two were also siblings were on stage there in New York. And viola was actually in Miami. And they played not just a simple trio, it was one of the most challenging pieces to play as a trio. It was Hans Krasser Tanz, a piece of music written by a Czech composer during the Holocaust era. It's incredibly difficult with polyrhythmic passages, with change of tempos, incredibly challenging if you are in the room, let alone if you are in different places. This is just a fragment from one of the dress rehearsals. And latency was just less than 20 milliseconds. It was absolutely amazing watching them playing together and seeing the magic happening. And my favorite part? This. Technology makes friends working together. What makes new friendship, like in this case. They didn't know each other, they became friends. And they want to take pictures together. Because at the end of the day, we are human, and technology is only meaningful if it is amplifying the humanness. It's not a substitute for a concert hall or for the pleasure of being together. It amplifies it. It makes it possible in different ways, in ways we didn't think they were there. And this is not just for, true for music. We saw examples with dance. I have a couple of pictures from another wonderful project called Romeo and Juliet Online, between the University of Coventry in the UK and ESADIB in Palma de Mallorca in Spain. And the idea they were co-producing a Shakespeare play in two different places. The final result was to be together and be on stage together. Again, we are promoting the physical theater and the possibility of performing together. But the way this happened through technology was marvelous. They were trying to learn this new tool. And the way they did that as actors, they played with it. They threw paper planes at each other, they pretended to throw balls at each other, bouncing them and throwing them, and in this way experimenting things like latency, space, exploring being together, digital intimacy in ways they had to learn from scratch. And the way they interact with technology was absolutely wonderful to witness. So the question is, okay, this is what we have today. What's the future going to look like? AI was mentioned many, many times, so I'm not spending time at all about this. I just want to mention the fact that AI can be a co-creator, it can be an assistant in different ways. I've seen AI being used, for example, to provide real-time, personalized, adapted performances to people with disabilities. And that has been a big help for many people, like providing translations, translating one means to another, like sounds to speech or, to text or vice versa. And co-creation, so this little picture there is something that I co-created with AI, and just experimenting about how we can actually expand the ways we can use technology, we can interact with technology. And networks are less and less tools to simply share data. They are distributing creative potential. And so in the next 30 years, if the networks are already carrying culture, so what are we expecting to carry in future? I think they will be at the very basis of a global creative ecosystem, call it as you like. But what I think they will need is 4 main ingredients: presence, access, participation, and community. We need the best technology because the feeling of being there in the same spaces with certain musicians playing together, is based on the best technology. We need low latency, we need high quality video, high quality audio. We need research and education networks like Internet2, GÉANT, and the other partners and sister networks in the world. We need proper global reach, we need access, we need possibility, the pervasive reach that research and education networks have, reaching schools and remote places, and not being driven by pure economic profit. We need the right tool to lower the barrier to access these tools. We need participation, we need inclusion. We need the possibility of everyone to get these tools frictionless and possibly for free or in a very accessible and sustainable way. And finally, we need to focus on the community, on us, not on technology. We made the community, and this is there because of us and for us. Technology needs to amplify humanness, in other words. So, if the network is evolving from an infrastructure to a space or to an instrument for co-creation, so then there is a natural question: how does it feel like to create together using the network? Not in a theoretical, abstract way, but in a very practical way, and most importantly, doing that together and now. So I have a little something for you. I'm going to show you a QR code in a short while, and what I'm going to do with this is allowing you to turn your mobile phones into musical instruments. You will tap on join, and when you tap join, your phone will become a tool for a shared experience. So when you connect, you will be assigned a caller, and you will see dots appearing on screen connected together. Each of you will be a dynamic constellation in a shared sky. Okay. But also, every time you tap, depending on where you tap on your phone, you can also do that with your laptop. Okay. Wherever you tap will create a musical note, and the position of the tap will determine the pitch, left to right, and the loudness from bottom to top. And so we can all create something together. Let's do that. So that's the QR code. If you prefer, you can just go to constellations.géant.org. And you can tap join. If anybody following through the streaming link, you can do that too. It's completely open and global. And let me show you the constellations. Also, let me record this. We are 100 connected at the moment. So what you just experienced is just a glimpse into something much, much larger. A network where every participant contributes, where every single gesture can become a shared experience, where technology happily disappears. I didn't have to tell you that I was running a server in the UK, we're using transatlantic links, I was using a Linux service. You don't need to need that. It's not 1996 anymore. And when technology disappears, we can be a community. What remains is connection, is trust, is intention, is collaboration. And the most beautiful thing is that we made this. We, in this room, and our friends, our colleagues in the research and education works, the industry partners, the universities, the researchers, we made this. We are completely responsible for this absolutely fantastic infrastructure that makes this possible and makes many other things possible today. So if you ask me about what the network will look like in the next 30 years, what I can tell you is that it will not be defined by speed, bandwidth, protocols, or even technology. The next 30 years will be defined by what we, as a community, we choose to create across every fiber, optical, physical, and most importantly, human, that connects us. Thank you. Thank you so much. And if you are interested in joining us, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't. Anne and I will be hosting a community of interest lunch today in Wisconsin room, level 6. And you're all invited to join us to talk about this and future and possibilities. Thank you.
So I just want to pause for a second and reflect on what we just saw, what we just learned about. And from these two and this person, Claudio, would you stand up? This is Claudio Alocchio that they mentioned several times from GAR, the INREN in Italy. And Dom, special thanks to Dom and to Anne. 20 plus years in the making of this. Every day we hear about how the network is used to move huge data sets, to do genomics and particle physics, and we get caught up in how the speeds and the feeds and all of those things. And these folks have a way of bringing that back to art and to culture, to the humanities, to the human part of that. And I just, I'm a computer scientist by trade, but this is just amazing. So I want to say thank you especially to Anne for her vision in creating this kind of environment where this can thrive. It's a bit of a niche, but it's just fantastic. So let's thank them again for what they've done.
And we have time for questions. Thank you. So we have time for questions if we...
You did it. Another standing
Exactly.
ovation. Thank you.
You did it, exactly.
History repeats itself, a virtuous cycle. We do have time for questions.
Exactly. We do have time for questions. So comments or anything you'd like to share with us.
Thank you, very impressive, and well, it's just amazing what we can do with the networks that we have today. You mentioned something, Domenico, that is quite interesting, which is using now AI to actually help us that creation process. I've seen some remarkable things that apparently are made with AI, and today we all are aware that you don't sometimes you don't know how to differentiate what's real, what's what we call fakes. No? How we can make sure that AI that not dilutes that creativity of the humans?
Oh, that's a...
I'm going to let Domenico take that.
No, please, no. It's a fascinating question. And of course, I think what makes AI a tool and an important, precious tool is the intention of the artist. So if AI is there to support a creative idea or creative project that the artist has, is not very different from a paintbrush or a computer where you actually type in codes to generate some digital art and so on. The intention is this important thing. If you delegate that intention to the machine, if you say, it's the equivalent, say, do something, I don't care. And if that's what we are doing, or that's what the art is doing, then for me, there is no value in what was created. Because if the artist doesn't bother caring about the creation, why should we be interested and bother looking at it or listening at it? The intention is what makes art what it is. And there are many ways digital art can be a fantastic way of conveying a creative idea and a creative project. And AI is just a tool to expand that and make that sometimes even more accessible or more personal. And it can give the possibility to bridge the gap between thinking art and making it without having to learn new programming languages or connecting, let's say, microcontrollers. And so it can be a fantastic way of making art more accessible, but also with the caveat that we don't delegate the creative part to the machine, say that, do whatever you want. Essentially, I don't care, because that's what would happen otherwise. Thank you for the question.
Time?
Break time then. Thank you again.